and welcome to Journey of Enlightenment. I am your host, Dr. Roger Gopal. Our session focuses on Vedic culture, Vedic literature, and Vedic philosophies. For the past few weeks, we have been studying the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Lord. Interestingly, that is our topic today, sound or music. Before we begin our segment, before we begin our in-depth study on the verses of Bhagavad Gita, please allow me to share with you a recent trip that I made to Rajasthan, a particular city in Rajasthan called Bharatpur. There, we had a beautiful dance performance by one of the residents of this great state of Rajasthan, which is known for its lovely food, colorful wear, and it's a very unique art form. Please enjoy. hope that you enjoyed that dance as much as I enjoyed taping that particular dance segment for you and sharing it with our viewers. We begin our study today on chapter 1, verses 12 to 19. These verses look at the beginning of the war, the sound of the war. The first verse, verse 12, starts with Bhishma attempting to enlighten Duryodhana. Now, if you remember during our last discussion, Duryodhana fell into a crisis of conscience. Duryodhana saw the armies of the Pandavas, and as a result, he went into despair. He started talking to himself, trying to convince himself that even though the Pandavas were a threat unto him, which he recognized, and he called it a formidable army, he started speaking to himself by running to Dronacharya and saying that, look at our army, we are still great, and we can conquer the Pandavas. However, no one responded to him. He was a man that was speaking to himself, perhaps trying to convince himself of the inevitable. Maybe trying to convince himself that he would not lose the war. Though in his heart he knew that defeat was there. The grandsire of the Kurava clan, Bhishma, who was the master, a great teacher of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, recognizing the crisis of conscience that they found in Duryodhana, decided to blow his shank. It was the first warning shot. The battle was ready to begin. Why is this important? In human history, in all civilization, music is used. Today, in a contemporary age, we usually use music to celebrate birth. We use music to celebrate at weddings or birthdays. But music is also used in another sense. There is a concept called martial instruments, where music was used at the beginning of a war for two main reasons. One reason is that they used drums and different instruments. As verse 13 says, they used the shank, kettle drums, and cow horns to create an energetic sound. Why? Because it gives courage to the soldiers to fight. But also, it was meant to scare their opponents, to render fear in the hearts of their enemies. In this case, it was a lot of noise made by the Kauravas. But what was the response of the Pandavas? The verses went on to say, at that moment, meaning the moment that the Kaurava army made their sound, their so-called energetic sounds, Krishna and Arjuna, positioned in a glorious chariot, pulled by 4 white horses, blew their heavenly shanks. In other words, the noises made by the Kauravas had absolutely no effect on Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Why? Because when a noise is made from an empty mind, a mind that is not filled with self-realization, with a knowledge of the self, with a divine awareness, it is just noise. It can have no real effect. But when a sound is made from the substratum of our very being, which is divine, from the very thought itself, vibration is created. Our words has a lasting impact, and our actions affect the entire universe. When we think, when we speak, and when we act, what is the source? Where is it coming from? The scripture says that Krishna, positioned in the glorious chariot, blew the heavenly shank. The verses went on to describe the other brothers of the Pandavas and the other captains of the army and the shanks that they blew. Interestingly, the shanks had names. The name of the shank of Krishna, which is Panchajanya, is referred to the control of the 5 classes of beings. Other scholars says that it refers to a demon that was killed by Lord Krishna. The meaning of Arjuna's shank is the Lord of Heavens. Bhima shank referred to the size of the shank. Yudhishthira shank means infinite victory. Nakula, the other Pandava brother, his shank means melodious songs. And Sahadeva, his shank refers to the jewel bracelet. Music made by the Pandavas had a lasting psychological and spiritual effect on both armies, whereas the Kauravas had no effect whatsoever. We need to ensure that whatever we say and do has a positive effect on this world. I would like to share with you something else. I recently visited Kurukshetra, and I went to the place where Bhagavad Gita was revealed, where Krishna stood and gave this divine discourse to Arjuna. I was given a gift, and that gift was a shank. The shank is just like the shank that we use during our puja, and which you know now is also used in war. And it is a shank similar to this that was used 5,000 years ago on that very spot. My trip was very interesting because where Lord Krishna stood and revealed himself in his cosmic form, I was given dirt from the very spot that Lord Krishna stood, which I cherished very carefully. During my trip to Kurukshetra, I was then taken to another part of the state of Haryana. It's called Adibadri. It's very high in the mountains. Now it is believed, according to Rig Veda, that the great Saraswati River ran through Haryana, through Adibadri, many years ago. Few thousand years ago, approximately 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, the river Saraswati dried up. It is believed to be even larger than what the Ganga River, the Ganges, is today, or even the Yamuna. In fact, Yamuna River was a tributary of this great Saraswati. Saraswati River, why is it important to us? It is important because it was on the banks of the Saraswati River the Harappan civilization, the Indus civilization grew. That is where the Indian race came from. I was given a gift by the Geological Society of India and the University of Kurukshetra that upon excavation of the Saraswati River, they dug deep where they measured the age of the sand, the beginning of the Harappan civilization dating 14,000 years ago. The sand that I am holding in my hand is dated 14,000 years ago. It represents the beginning of our civilization. Why do I share this with you? It is because it is part of our history that is still relevant today. It is part of the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata war. That's where it all took place. And despite the age of Mahabharata, or the revelation of Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago, it still has an appropriate message for us today. Let us be mindful of the things we do, of the things we say, and of the things we think. On that note, I would love to share with you another dance item performed in Bharatpur. Please enjoy.
Hare
I hope you were educated and entertained in today's program. It was my pleasure being with you here today. This is a Journey of Enlightenment, and I am your host, Dr. Roger Gopal. I bid you Dhanyavad. Thank you.